everybody, welcome to the Digging Deeper Jazz Greatest Hits video. I wanted to give you guys a nice little parting gift and bring together a number of videos that I thought really got to the heart of what Digging Deeper Jazz is all about. Mostly though, I want to say thank you for being with me for 200 of these Digging Deeper Jazz videos. It's amazing and I appreciate it. And a huge thank you to those of you that took the further step to join me inside jazzwire.net. You know who you are. We work together 7 days a week, some of us. It's pretty amazing. Now, for those of you that haven't made the step to come into Jazzwire, email me at this address and I will send you the link for a free 1-week trial. We can finally get you inside Jazzwire and you can see what it is I've been talking about and bragging about for a couple years now. I'm excited to get that happening. And the last thing before we get started is the new YouTube show, J&J on Jazz. That starts next week, April 30th, 2021. I hope I'll have you there with me. All right, so digging deeper. When I started digging deeper, it was really for two reasons. One is to demystify jazz and improvisation. It's not impossible. You don't have to be crazy talented. There are a lot of mysteries surrounding this music that don't need to be there. That's ridiculous. And I wanted to provide you with information that I wish I would have had when I was starting this stuff. And the other part of it is that there's so many assumptions we make of how jazz works and how we should learn it. I'm here to tell you, a lot of those assumptions are straight up not correct. A lot of what you read in books, a lot of what you hear at workshops or from teachers is not the best path forward. Maybe it's a good path, but it may not be a good path for you. So with Digging Deeper, I wanted to question how it is we learn this music and how we go about practicing it. And that's kind of what I want to get into here. So I've chosen 4 videos. The first 2, one is on triad pairs, one is on enclosures. And those are such important melodic devices for us to get going. And we can get sounding so good so fast with them. The next one is a video I did called Stop Practicing Scales. This advice that we hear all the time, gotta practice your scales, practice these scales every day. I would say no. If we alter those scales just a little bit, we can make music with them. I want you playing music, not scales. So we can combine the two and we can make your scale practice much more powerful, much more like improvising. And the last video that we're gonna hit on is one I did a couple months ago on pentatonics and side slipping. And I picked that just because it's fun. And what it does is it gives us an insight into players like McCoy Tyner on piano. That amazing stuff he could do, that he's so special, so talented, so once-in-a-generation player, we could never do that. Not true. He was special, he was talented, he was once in a generation, but he used devices and techniques that you can understand. That's what Digging Deeper is all about. So enjoy this greatest hits and please subscribe to the channel and I will see you next week for J&J on Jazz. Have a good time. Let's dig into this. Let's hear what I'm talking about with this particular triad pair. So I'm talking about a triad and a second triad separated by a tritone. So I'm, let's think in the key of C. I'm playing a C triad and an F sharp triad. So all that stuff was just moving back and forth between these two different triads. And it sounds pretty cool. It sounds pretty angular. It's a fantastic sound. I'm certainly not the first guy to talk about this stuff, but I hope to give it to you in a kind of simple, easy to use approach here. And let me play through some of these examples. I'm going to play example 3, which is what you've heard me do already. So I'm just playing 1, 3, 5, 3 of each triad. 1, 3, 5, 3 in C, 1, 3, 5, 3 in F sharp. And those of you trying to play along in the key of C, I'm transposing on the saxophone. I'm playing in concert B flat, but just to keep it simple, let's talk in the key of C. Okay, so now to go on to the next example, number 4. So you get it. Pick whatever shape of triad you like. In that instance, it was 1, 5, 3, 5. And I'm repeating notes because a triad has 3 notes and I'm playing in 4, 4. So shifting back and forth every 4 notes, right? Let me go on to the next one, number 5. So very simple to the first one that I played, number 3. It just has some stops and starts in it with quarter notes and eighth notes. This is not supposed to be any sort of exhaustive, way to practice these. I'm trying to give you the idea and turn you loose on your own. There's many very good books out there that can be kind of overwhelming. So, take this approach to begin with, and if you find yourself really excited about triad pairs, there's definitely other places to go. Let me play this last example. So I went past the example, but I was sort of inverting my way up through the triads. But every 2 beats, every 4 notes, 4 eighth notes, I would change between the C triad and the F triad. You could do it freely. So what we're getting there, that's an enclosure. You've heard this sound before, and not just in jazz and bebop. You've heard this in classical music too, right? And the idea is the above note is a tension. The below note is a tension, probably a stronger tension, and then a resolution, right? So to me, this reminds me of language. A little baby, when a little kid, a little baby sees an ice cream cone, they say, ice cream. And they point at it and they say what the thing is. Kind of like a beginning improviser sees a C7 chord and what do they play? C. Great, nothing wrong with that. That's developmental. That's where you're at the time, right? But now the idea of when you get a little older, when you're 10 years old and you see an ice cream cone, instead of saying ice cream, you may say, hey, it's kind of hot outside, isn't it? Wouldn't a snack be nice? And you kind of work the situation, right? So you don't just say the thing, you say something about the thing. You say something around the thing. You create some tension that leads to the thing. You get a little hipper, right? So that's what we want to do with these enclosures. So kids learn that on their own with language, right? And jazz musicians and classical musicians have been doing this forever. So this idea of wanting to play, in the example on the sheet, a C, but instead we're going to precede it by a note above and a note below. Now, specifically what I did is I said a diatonic note above, meaning from the scale, and a half step below. So again, look at the sheet, and you'll see that the half step below is a real tension. For instance, if we're on a C7, I'm playing a B natural below. If I'm enclosing the E of the C7, the third of that C triad, I'm playing a D sharp below, a real tension, right? So that is what we want. We don't want to make this very consonant. We want to make tension, tension, release. That's what enclosures are about. It's an amazing melodic shape. I would call it a melodic shape. I have some licks on this sheet. By the way, I'd be happy to send you the sheet. Write me an email at diggingdeeperjazz@gmail.com. But I think if we think of this as a device, like a whole family of melodic device, we can come up with our own licks. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play rhythm changes. I Got Rhythm by George Gershwin. I'm going to improvise a little bit. And instead of playing all those chord changes going by, I'm just going to be playing over the A sections of rhythm changes. 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5. Can't believe I just sung for you, but there it is. Over those chord changes, I'm not playing any of them. I'm going to be playing enclosures in the tonic key in B flat concert in my key of C. So it's pretty amazing. Any of these 3 licks is what I'm going to be playing. So let me put this sheet back up so you can sort of see what I'm picking from. But everything I'm improvising is going to be picked from this material. this week I want to implore you to stop practicing scales. If you're a drummer, please stop practicing rudiments. All those things that we do that are about music, but they're not actually music, a bit of a waste of time. So what I want to do today is give you a framework of how to keep practicing that stuff. And yes, those things are important, but how to use them, how to practice them in a way that we can actually use on the gig, that we can actually use when somebody counts off a song. There is no reason for any of us to play an octave up and down scale ever again in our lives. And that's what I want to talk about. Once a poet learns the alphabet, they're not thinking about the alphabet. They're too busy using the alphabet as a tool to write poetry. It's the same with a palette of paint that an oil painter has. That palette of paint isn't the art. We don't worry that much about that thing. Once we figure out how to do it, we now apply it and do something with it. So that's what I want to do. I want to break down these boundaries. And so many of us get stuck with practicing these things over and over again. They're not actually useful. They're not actually getting us ahead. So I'm going to give you something very, very tangible, a very good PDF. I'm going to show you how to think about this stuff and how to change your practicing and make it way more powerful than it's ever been. So here is what you need to do. We need to make it into a melody. So what I'm going to say is do not go up to the octave or 2 octaves. Turn around early or turn around late. So I want you to not go to the octave ever again. I want you to go to, let's say, the 7th. Somehow already that sounds more interesting, more like a melody. So I played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or go past the octave, go to the 9th, 1 note above the octave. That right there makes this sound more like a melody, sort of a little bit more functional. So that's one of the first things. So look at the first item on the sheet here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. That sort of kind of sounds like music. We can imagine playing that in a solo. We can imagine one of our heroes playing that, and yes, some of our heroes have played that exact thing. So that is the deal. We can see how that is very much a major scale, but we can also see those 3 items that I changed. Look at item number 2 here. So I guess the implication here is, do we know our major scales? Yes. Here's the thing. If you don't know your major scales, definitely practice your major scales. But not for 45 years. Practice your major scales for like 3 days and then do this. There's no reason. There's no reason. So turning around at the 7th, I came back down, added a nice little syncopation, and ended on a chord tone. So that's the other implied bit of knowledge. Do you know your chord tones? 1, 3, 5, 7. That's what I mean by chord tones. This stuff is sounding like real music. And what I'm going to do is improvise with just the B flat pentatonic scale. So those of you that are a novice at that green community level, this would be a great thing to do. Just make up some great melodies with the pentatonic scale. All right, so that pentatonic scale is such a great place to start for making melodies. In the middle of what I just played there, I quoted an old Lester Young tune called Lester Leaps In. And you probably noticed I was doing some little bending to the third, or a little grace note to the third. So that's a jazz blues kind of thing that we can do, but I was playing the third. I was playing the natural third. There was no extra note in there. I'm not going to count it as that. All right, so now let's shift gears and go into high gear. Here is a cool possibility with pentatonics. The idea is side slipping, this idea of playing in one key and then moving around somewhere. And so for today, we're specifically going to go up a half step in the key of B flat in the key of B. Now, there's lots of different ways to do side slipping, and if you've ever heard McCoy Tyner play a piano solo, you've heard this kind of stuff in there. So what I'm going to do is keep that set of chord changes going on and on, where I just did some very nice melodic diatonic improvisation. So what I'm going to do is use two scales, the B flat scale I just used, and then every once in a while I'm going to slide up a half step and start playing in the key of B, even though the chord changes are going to keep going around in B flat. Those are the wrongest notes you could possibly play. Yes, indeed. So essentially what I'm doing is playing as wrong as possible. How could that ever sound correct? Well, so the idea is the organization that the pentatonic scale brings. Let me play this for you a couple times. All right, what do you think? Was that ridiculous? Was that kind of cool sounding? Was it? Well, it's some pretty advanced language, so it's not going to be for everybody. If you like realist painting and somebody shows you some cubism where there's three eyeballs and the nose off the side, you may think to yourself, I don't know what's going on. I do not like that. So fine. So for some of us, this is sort of where we want to get pushing towards. This idea of how do we play outside but have it sound organized. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Some of you going back and reviewing some videos and concepts maybe you haven't thought about in a while. For some of us, maybe new material. Either way, this is all about getting you inspired, getting you some great information, and getting you moving forward. So again, thank you for being on this trip with me. Thank you for those of us who are inside Jazzwire. Thank you to those who attended some of the Digging Deeper Jazz online workshops. We have some coming up next month. Maryland Summer Jazz, all of it. I love providing this stuff for you guys. So please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week for J&J on Jazz.